Django Gold is a stand-up comedian. He is a veteran of the Colbert Show. He was a writer for The Onion. His new special, available on YouTube of all places, is called Bag of Tricks. He has an interesting take on things, and I think he comes at things from like a 145-degree angle. Because if I said he comes at a 180-degree angle, you could price that in and know, oh, okay, all the jokes are not where you expect them. Some of the jokes and punchlines are where you expect them, and some of them aren't. Django, thanks for coming on The Gist.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I feel like 180 is just like head on, isn't it?
Well, if someone comes at you 180,
they're coming from behind.
Yeah, they rear you.
And I'm not trying to surprise or scare anyone. I want good, clean, happy audience members.
But if humor is benign disruption of that which is expected, like there are patterns and people know the rule of three. But also, if you could get a joke in there where you think it's going to be, I'm going to say two things and the third will be funny, but the second thing is funny, or it seems like the setup is funny, there's a great joy to that. The audience might not even know what's going on, but you do, don't you?
I do. I agree. I agree with that. That is a good principle. Just trying to keep people off balance is usually pretty helpful. Like, I think that there is something to be said for like getting what you want when you want it, but sometimes you give them a little surprise. You say that funny thing's the second thing. You don't even say a third thing. Sometimes the funny thing can be the first thing.
But just don't be funny.
That's where I come into play. That's my revolutionary approach to comedy. No jokes, no enjoyment. Just a bunch of people in the crowd going like this.
Anti humor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So does this come naturally? I mean, well, I shouldn't say does it come naturally. How intentional is it? I don't want to give away hundreds of jokes, but before we started, we talked about.
And I'm a modern, sensible person. I believe that sexuality is a spectrum. And it ranges from people who are going to heaven to... Triggered much lives. You're triggered. Don't pretend like you're not triggered. I said something mean and now you're unhappy about it. Checkmate. No, sexuality, though. That's the topic of the next joke. I consider myself heterosexual with maybe a caveat here and there, Like, though I consider myself straight, I do enjoy Greek art.
The idea of that, is like, I'm obviously a very modern woke guy, and you have like kind of the anti-woke thing in there. So the idea is just kind of throwing people off balance whenever you can. And
right. So normally a punchline would be, it goes from
sure.
I sincerely believe to boom, then the
wacky thing. Yeah. I start with a wacky thing.
So was that joke ever anything else?
I don't remember. I think that one just kind of quickly came to me. I think sometimes jokes like that are just there and you don't really have to work them out, that one. And that one's so simple. Yeah. I don't really think it needed that much workshopping. I'm trying to remember what I thought of. I think I was actually in Birmingham, Alabama when I thought of that one. Which is a place where you kind of expect people to have that opinion.
So you saw a lot of churches around you. Did the religiosity come before the spectrum? Or
no, I think I know what I saw in Birmingham. I went to the old ironworks plant.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Big statue of Vulcan. It's fantastic.
That was the coolest place I've ever been in my life. That was, listeners and viewers, if you've never been to this place, it's the Birmingham, I forget what it's called exactly, but it's an old abandoned iron foundry that's just left open to the public. And you get to see this crazy old machinery, this rusted out iron. It was like one of the coolest places in the world.
The coolest place in the world is in the same city that the MLK Center is.
Yes.
In, that they talk about the history of civil rights.
You can pick one or the other.
That's right.
The museum or the factory.
More important. Yeah. But again, you're saying you're a woke guy.
I am a very woke guy.
Likes to go to iron foundries more than
we're all built of different parts. I can't be defined as just a woke guy.
Yours are forged together on an anvil. Under very high heat.
Yeah. That's a good metaphor for my comedy, forging it like Hephaestus.
So some of your jokes, many of your jokes are, more classic. The punchline is the punchline at the end. And I'm thinking but they also play with themes. So if you don't know, what I try to do on this show is treat comedy as a thesis. A lot of comedians love this. They're essentially making a humorous op-ed. Some comedians, I just talked to Nimish Patel, he hates it. I mean, he used to be into that, and I was like, I don't think he thinks it's selling out. It just doesn't excite him as much. I just want to make joke. There's not a thesis. I see you as certainly having a point of view, and it's important for you to have your point of view.
Yeah.
But you're never going to sacrifice. Like, I'm like, well, this is true, but not funny. You will
No.
never.
I mean, like, I think it's kind of like almost this is like a big grand thing. It's almost kind of heretical to get up there and be like, the point of what I'm doing here is to make a point first, and then if we have time, some joke. Like, that's insane. Like, this is entertainment. I'm trying to entertain people. Like, and no one could possibly give a shit what I think about anything. Like, they're there because they think I'm a funny man, and my goal is to be the funny man. You know, if I can make some kind of clever point in the margins, sure, why not? But like, the priority has to be, you know.
So then, when you're writing for Colbert, I don't know that he definitely wants clapter, but man, does he get clapter a lot.
Well,
how does that affect your job?
Well, I don't work there anymore, but you know, I think he would say the same thing. He was always trying to prioritize being funny as well. You know, I think the clapter comes from the fact that, you know, everyone in the crowd, you know, especially during the time I worked there, it was, you know, the Trump era. Everyone there had a big axe to grind with Trump, as well they should have. So, you know, they were really looking for someone to give it to him. So that kind of comes from that. I think that was a kind of unique point in history, though, where everyone was like really just like kind of on the same page for a while, or at least in certain circles.
But would you, or would certain jokes be more likely to be okayed or approved if you know you're going to get a big audience reaction, even if the reaction isn't necessarily laughter?
I don't think so. I think mostly people would have the philosophy there, we have to do the joke first. I mean, who knows, you know, maybe they didn't always hit that goal every time, but I think the goal was every morning was, you know, this is a comedy show, make jokes. I think it was pretty pure in that regard.
Did you like working there?
I did. Yeah. You know, I got to write jokes every day. I never quite got over it. You got to write a joke in the morning that in the evening would be shown to 3 million people.
Yeah. Like,
it's kind of a crazy concept, because as a comedian, you know, you go out there, you perform from 50 people, 80 people, whatever. Like, that's great. That's a huge rush. But just getting to do that on such a scale like that was pretty wild.
But then it's so very gratifying. 3 million people left, you know, a few hundred people in the Ed Sullivan Theater, 3 million people, and no one knows that you were responsible. I know it's part of the job.
I'm the silent hero. What can I say? You know, someone else gets all the glitz and the glamour. I'm just in the trenches, you know, but you know, you get paid. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
What is, and healthcare apparently.
Oh my God.
Unless you're on strike.
Best Cadillac healthcare. Well, I actually still have healthcare up until next October, at which point I need to start being very careful with my body.
Or you get a new job that has health.
Don't even get me started on that.
So you got it. So what are you going to do? Like do all your extreme sports now?
Yeah, I think the idea is to really rack up those medical bills now.
Or just get elective surgery.
If I could get cancer in the next 5 months, that would be really help me out.
What about just like correcting tendons that might one day be creaky?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, like, I don't even trust my body, like, not to. I'm just kind of. I'm getting to the age where everything is just like sort of broken.
Yeah.
Like the joint on my thumb hurts a little bit. My ear feels a little ringy at times. Like, so at this point, like, what are you going to do? Go to the doctor and be like, hey, I have 80 problems that need to be resolved.
Yes.
Like, what, you know, I think at some point you just kind of have to accept that your body is a broken down machine and, you know, make the best of it.
On that pain scale they give you in the hospital, from happy face to totally sad face, you're like 2 degrees or 2 faces to the left of happy.
Yeah.
But it's every part of your body.
Every part of your body is like sort of
your actual face.
Yeah. Even your smile can't get up to that happy smile because that hurts too much.
That happy smile mocks you is what it does.
Yeah. That happy motherfucker. He doesn't know how good he has it.
So speaking of happiness, your stage persona, at least, and in the limited time I've gotten to know you, it's totally belied by the ebullient personality that you evince in daily life.
Yeah.
But your stage persona...
Ebullient.
Yeah. So
ebullient cubes.
Yes. Right. You're the essence of a personality, but when dissolved in water, you're easier to take. But my point is that you're not, I wouldn't say you're downer. You have a lot of energy. It just seems that, you know, the possibility of you perhaps offing yourself right after the show is always in the air.
That I would say is a running theme, is my suicidal thoughts and fantasies.
Love going to a bar, hanging out with my friends. You know, if you stay at the bar late enough, you get to watch the confident people kiss. You get to watch the confident people kiss, find love, you know? You'll see a confident, attractive man making out with a confident, attractive woman. And they're kissing, they're making out. But they're also smiling. They're smiling because they found someone that accepts them. They found affection, you know, in this cold world that we live in. It's a beautiful thing to find someone that feels for you what you would feel for them. You know, it's like, I know people kind of like have a tendency to mock the whole like drunk hookup thing, but like, no, there's beauty in that. You know, there's a little bit of magic in that, in my opinion. So that's happening, and I'm like 12 feet away watching it. I'm drinking a $9 Amstel Light. And then it occurs to me, oh, of course, I'll go home and kill myself.
Which, for the record, viewer, is all an act. And if you're thinking that, don't do it. Don't do it and say Django told you to in your suicide note. No, I think how that kind of downer thing kind of developed. It's like, you know, I'm kind of like a serious guy in real life, and I think it just kind of naturally developed from that to like kind of create this character I have on stage where I'm like very kind of like, I have like this apocalyptic worldview, you know?
Yes.
Like doom is coming around the corner. And I just basically developed that because I think it lends itself well to jokes and messing around, you know? So based on that, I've kind of gotten this weird, like, the character I would say is like neurotic, but also with like fear, like paranoia coming out the wazoo, you know?
Right.
And then in between that, you throw a few jokes in there.
How long have you been doing comedy, stand-up?
I've been doing stand-up, I'd say, for about 12 years.
Yeah, and how long have you had this character, which I'm going to guess shares a lot of your DNA? Maybe
you know,
more than the chimpanzee shares with the human.
Sure. I would say that character really, I think after the pandemic, I really started to figure it out. And that's only been like, what, two and a half years, something like that?
Right.
Because like I didn't do any comedy whatsoever during the pandemic. I did like 2 of those abysmal Zoom shows. And I was like, you know what, we need to take a break from this. But somehow in that year and change of like not doing anything, once I came out of that, I just suddenly kind of latched onto this pretty firmly. So I don't know how it developed. Just like, I guess, you know, you hibernate, you come out a different person, or whatever, however it happened. But yeah, I think like the last 2.5 years, I really kind of like locked into how this works. And
well, during the pandemic, I'm going to guess, like a lot of people, maybe you saw, first of all, you looked around the world and you saw gloom around you. And secondly,
That's true.
being morose was a natural response. Maybe you got a little depressed during the pandemic.
I'd say it's, yeah, quite possible.
Okay, so.
Although it's also not a pandemic right now. I'm also depressed now. So is there some kind of real catch-22?
I think there's a pandemic of misunderstanding. Yeah.
There you go.
I think that, well, are you just as depressed as you were during the pandemic, or is your just stage persona solidified? What really happened?
I think the stage persona is more solidified. I found what works for me is this weird kind of paranoid lunatic. There was a period, like when I was first starting out comedy, I was trying to be like the bubbly, you know, happy, because, you know, I think most great comedians, or, you know, a lot of them are really good at, like, they're people, you know, people pleasers. They're confident. You watch them like, yeah, this person has it going on.
Right.
I want to see what this person has to say.
Right. You go out to a comedy club, and what's the MC say? Who's ready to have a good time?
Yeah. And that's what's you know, instinctively fun. And I think I tried to do that for a while, and it just doesn't mesh. You know, I can't fake it that well. It's easier for me to get to this other character, which is a lot closer to who I am. So
would you say the joke writing, of course, over 12 years, the joke writing is going to improve, but inhabiting the character that you're inhabiting now, and maybe this is your persona closer to who you are, does it actually help the joke writing? Does it just help the delivery, or does it make you actually think of topics in ways you wouldn't have if you were forcing ebullience on the audience?
I think it helps the joke writing because it helps, you know, it directs you to where you have to go. Because you kind of know the type of person you are on stage, it kind of limits the possible punchlines to certain things. So I think that makes it easier. Having fewer options is always paradoxically is always what you want as a creative, because you want less ambiguity. You want less guesswork. You want to know there's only a few things you should do, because that makes your life a lot easier, in my opinion.
Creativity flourishes within rules.
That's right. Love rules.
If you have to put the rules around you, or erect the rules like you do by deciding what your persona is going to be, it doesn't matter. It's still rules.
No, rules are actually great. And I don't think they're meant to be broken. I think they're meant to be followed.
Yeah, like the rubber ball bounces off the hard wall, not a rubber wall.
Oh, there you go. Does it, if you throw a rubber ball at a rubber wall, it just stops?
You go back in time.
Ooh, don't avoid that.
What do you think of the phrase dark humor?
You
You have a dark sense of humor.
I think, I mean, if you had to classify it, yeah. It's weird though, because like when I say what I consider a dark joke on stage, I'm really enjoying it.
Yes.
So I'm like filled with light and laughter as I'm saying some messed up thing. So it's hard for me to say what I'm doing is dark because it brings me happiness. You know?
So one way to look at it is maybe it's darker than the audience's resting state.
Yes.
But it's lighter because you're getting laughter out
Yeah,
of it. You're resting.
if anything, I'm providing light to the darkness. And if the crowd joins me on this journey, you know, I'm helping them out too. So
yeah, maybe they come in light, you come in dark, and everyone leaves a little dimly lit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best you could hope for.
Yeah, give them a little bit of sunshine in their dismal lives.
So I asked you if the persona and embracing the darkness helps with writing the joke. Does it help with your mental state otherwise? I mean, being inside this morose guy who you are on stage, how's that working out for you psychologically in daily life? Well,
I usually only have this kind of weird character when I'm on stage. And because I get all those sweet laughter endorphins from it, it only helps, you know, like comedy is like there's like this whole idea of like comedy being therapy for the audience, which I'm sure it is, you know, laughing generates whatever emotions you know, make life grand. But like for me as a comedian, I definitely get it, you know, tenfold. So like for me, like just telling all these dark jokes is like, you know, a pleasure.
So people, we're going to play clips from the show and they maybe can't discern the totality of your stage persona, but they're hearing you now. Mm-hmm. So what are some differences? Like what are some things you say on stage that would be very uncomfortable for you to say here?
I think
or ways you say it.
I think it's more about like, what do you want to say? Like mannerisms more.
Okay.
Like on stage, I do a lot of uncomfortable staring and weird cadences. And I'm always trying to keep the crowd off balance in a way that if I did that in real life would like make me a pariah.
Right.
You know, I like, cause you know, I can be like kind of an awkward, weird guy. And that's a hindrance in real life, but I can harness it on stage, like make people laugh. Like it kind of works out for me.
Are your weird cadences consistent from night to night?
They actually are. It's really weird. Like if you listen to like a bunch of recordings of the same joke, I'm always doing the same. Like if the joke has been like solidified and like it's a finished product, it's very funny to see how like the vocal cadences are like identical. If you like have the waveform, like it's just very odd because I don't move my I don't have much inflection, but what inflection I do have is like pretty much the same.
So that is your, you know, that is your delivery. That's not so different from any comic. No. Hit this word.
Yeah.
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 But for you, it's not necessarily hitting a word. It's staring in this.
It's staring, but it's also like weird, like vocal peaks. Like on the special, for example, the first joke is, I've been dating a lot recently, but I say, I've been dating a lot recently. Just like this arbitrary, like shouting I do, which is like just kind of like an odd, like thing I picked up.
I've been dating a lot recently. Going on a lot of dates. It's kind of exhausting, to be honest. Having to pretend to be someone else 4 nights a week. Putting on a collared shirt and lying for an entire evening. Oh, hello, I'm who you need me to be. I'm a good man. I flush the toilet every time I use it, and I certainly don't have any dangerous opinions.
I don't know why I do it.
But you're defining yourself right off the bat.
That's like the idea.
100 comics are dating.
It's not Stephen Wright. It's like this weird other guy, you know, who has a similar vocal intonation, but like is choosing to use it in strange, alarming ways.
So and I told you this before we started, to me, there's so much of Norm Macdonald in what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you said thank you.
No, I mean, I love the man. I love his comedy so much.
What about it?
I think he was just the funniest person to ever live, to be honest. Like he really just was so great and so honest and like really unornamented. There was never any tricks. It was all just like a very funny person being as funny as he could and just like getting straight to it. And like, I just love him, man. He warms my heart just thinking about him. It's crazy.
You vocally talking about waveforms, you're much lower than him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, he smiled a lot.
Yeah.
He seemed, he definitely had a dark sense of humor, but he seemed to be having fun with it and laughing with it. I don't see you doing that.
No, he was definitely more like an imp.
Yeah.
He's always very, like he would get one over on the crowd and they'd be groaning and laughing and he'd always be very pleased with himself, which I always just loved. I love watching him revel in what he has done. You know, that's always very fun for me.
Do you want to come across as weird, but is there a line of too weird that people will find off-putting?
Well, I think the joke is always make the audience laugh.
Yes.
And if they're not laughing, then you've gone too weird.
Yes.
That's kind of the thing. I'm not trying to do this just to make myself crack up. Like there is an audience there that I want them to enjoy themselves.
Of course.
So I think like, yeah, that the answer there is like whatever the audience can bear. The audience is always the ultimate judge of like what should and should not be done.
Do you find out where the audience is by going up to the line and then crossing it in terms of weirdness and then saying, all right, that was too far?
Yeah. What I'll often do is I'll structure my sets so like the first joke is a little normal and the second one's like a little odder. And by the end, it's like kind of like monkey business time. And if at any time,
hijinks,
a lot of hijinks. And if at any point the crowd is not digging it, maybe draw back a little bit. Or if I'm feeling particularly reckless, fucking plow on through and see
So they don't know it. You're testing them. You're gauging them.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like, you'll start out with the most relatable thing, like about, I've been dating a lot recently.
But if you say it like you said.
Dating a lot recently. Wow. Yeah, I did the Jerry Lewis thing. Yeah, but the goal is like slowly get them on their side. If you start out with something crazy, and they hate it, that's it. You're not going to win them back.
True. Yeah. It's like this was instituted after I took the SAT or standardized test, but now you take them online and they structure the next question based on if you got that question wrong. So poor test takers will be getting easier and easier questions.
Oh, really?
Good test takers will be getting more and more challenged.
Yeah. So you get more and more.
So you have the standardized test or the what is that ETS system?
I'd like to think that a comedy set of me performing is at least as fun as a standardized test.
No, it's not.
If not less.
Yeah, we'll get you into worse colleges. I'm not just looking at my phone.
Oh, yeah,
notes here.
No, I assume you're not. Yeah. I know you're not just on eBay like, oh, this is such a sick watch. Check this out.
All right. So you talk about masculinity being a prison. And that is, okay, so at first, that's a tag to an existing joke. Yeah. And I would say, if it stopped there, if you didn't use it as a jumping off point, it's not exactly a humorous tag, right?
No, it's like, it's kind of like a harsh fact.
Okay, so that's the harsh fact. And then you make a joke and an observation about masculinity. So is that technically, was it born of a segue? It seems like a segue that itself becomes a joke.
I think it was born of just like seeing that ridiculous phrase online, masculinity is a prison, which is true. Many things are prison, but like prison is a prison. Like masculinity is like me and you going to watch the game and eating wings. Like it's a pretty good prison. Like, have you seen even like prisons on fucking TV? Like even those prisons are way worse than that.
You haven't seen a Scandinavian prison.
Oh, are those the bad ones or are those the good ones?
Well, no, those are very good ones.
Oh, yeah.
We were supposed to emulate them, but they're not great.
No, they're still.
It's not wings.
They're still confined. Yeah,
it's not chest bumping when you don't really want to.
Yeah. So I think that one was just born out of like
not pretending not to like ballet when you're kind of intrigued.
Yeah. That's nothing. That's not even close.
Scandinavia, they can't do that.
That's not even what do you call it? What do you call it when you probation?
That's not even right. Exactly. That's not even work release.
Yeah.
So is that like a thesis? Is that something you if your thesis could be stated in words, it's that whether or not it's a prison, what we're really doing is insulting an actual phenomenon in our society to make the worst point.
That joke in that particular bit, that's like the thesis of that. Like, let's not fucking gloss over how awful prison is for prisoners to make some dumb point about how tough it is being a dude.
But is it also to get there? I guess the easiest thing to do is to say that it's totally wrong that masculinity is a prison. It's a little harder to pull off to say that, okay, masculinity isn't great, or the idea that you have to be a certain kind of man, that's not great, but it's not a prison. Maybe there's more fodder if you were just to, take aim at the idea that masculinity is anything other than something to celebrate.
No, I think it is a worthy topic of discussion. I know a lot of comedians do it, and like it does make like you should think about these things because like the way that men were like taught to be men up until like 10 years ago was like insane. And it's like, it makes sense to interrogate that type of thing. It makes sense to interrogate what emotions you feel based on the expectations of society. I just think the hyperbole of like, this is a crushing, like, it's not really, I think most people are pretty okay with being men.
But you made the joke about, and you shouldn't feel defensive. I just think it's interesting. Mm-hmm. It is worthy to interrogate. And you take those points like, good point, but no comedy there. Yeah. Where the comedy is people making a bad point.
Yes.
It's kind of harder to make it. I think it may be harder to make a joke about something you agree with.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's funnier to take something I don't agree with and like somehow take a position I don't agree with, and somehow I'm like talking on its behalf.
Yes.
It's kind of like enjoyable to me.
Do you do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, that heaven one is, is a good example, because I do believe that sexuality is a prism. What's the word I was using?
Prison, continuum.
Continuum. What the heck? Can't even remember. That's my own damn joke. Sexuality is a spectrum. I do believe that, but it's funny for me to like kind of interrogate my own liberal woke leanings.
Yeah.
And kind of poke fun at myself and poke fun at my fellow liberal woke friends. It's just it's fun.
I think the audio, you probably play a lot of Brooklyn audiences, but also apparently Birmingham.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain places in Brooklyn where I would not attempt that joke.
Really?
Park Slope, not happening.
Really?
They really are.
Littlefield?
I could tell you some stories about Littlefield, man. I once got booed off the stage there.
Yeah?
It was on my birthday, 2019, and I was getting like pretty steadily heckled throughout the performance. And this was a point in my career where my philosophy was, if someone in the crowd is interrupting, ignore them. They'll go away.
Yeah.
And these people did not go away. And I also was not like really flexible in my joke selection. So things were getting more and more offensive as the set went on, and they were getting angrier and angrier. And it got to the point where I was on my last joke at like, minute 9, 50 seconds or something like that, almost about to get off stage. And then I got interrupted once again. I was like, you know what? There's 20 words left in this joke. I'm out of here. And I just walked off stage. And that's the type that unfortunately is like an association I have with Park Slope, and why I try not to tell jokes like that anymore.
Is that a lesson in crowd dynamics, or is that a lesson in like, don't play the wrong audiences?
Well, the real lesson there is, if someone's being obnoxious and interrupting you, you need to confront them. It's like a schoolyard bully.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, there are different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
If I could do that one again, I would definitely say, shut the fuck up, or in a more humorous way.
Yeah, but you have to get the audience on your side.
I think the audience is on my side. These people were being very obnoxious.
Were they heckling you from like what? Okay, so we got into this discussion when I was saying you wouldn't do that joke in front of someone.
Yeah.
Were they heckling you from a social justice perspective?
Yeah,
in their minds?
I think the very first.
What did they take issue with?
The first joke they objected to, if I recall, was a joke I don't do anymore, not for any particular reason, just kind of got phased out. It was something along the lines of like, I got my hair cut at a black barber shop. They do a good job, but the problem is it just takes so much longer because I have to sit there while everyone thanks me for healing our country's racial divide. And the joke there is, I mean, I don't need to explain it. The joke is obvious. Like, it's like kind of like some self-right. It's like, I get my hair cut at a black.
This joke's on yourself.
It's jokes on myself.
Clearly.
But these ignoramuses in the crowd, like this, as soon as I said like black barbershop, they're up in arms. Like, so like, they just weren't giving me the patience that I felt the performer.
And these were white people.
Yeah, it was two kind of like crispy, what do you call them? Like kind of like hippie types.
Yeah.
Like
crunchy.
That's the edge.
But also maybe crispy.
A little crispy, a little burn around the edge.
So what the fuck were they saying?
I don't even remember. They're just like, at first I was kind of heard as like a series of like groans, and then like the problem was 4 years ago, so I don't specifically remember the exact objections, but it's basically like that again and again and again. And the last joke.
Well, luckily, a pandemic kicked in soon thereafter.
Yes, so luckily I could wipe that away from like start from scratch.
Or you could just dwell on it as you do no show.
No, I haven't really been thinking about it too much. It is a very funny story, and every so often I'll run into someone and they're like, "Oh, remember when that happened?" Yep, I sure do.
And what was the other joke, or what was the?
Well, the joke that was ending was a pretty racy pedophilia joke that I don't think I would ever do in Park Slope anymore. And that one was like, at that point, they were objecting every other word. And like, it was like, at this point, I'm like sweating and like freaking out. Like, I can't believe this is happening. So it was a disaster all around. I want to reiterate, this was on my birthday.
Yeah. But they don't know that. And they
don't know that, but I knew that. And I had friends that were in the crowd. Oh, yeah, well, come to my show on my birthday. We'll go out and get a drink. And so then I had to come out after like, so how'd it go?
Yeah. And Littlefield is this like bespoke, curated, well, that one show they do. I mean,
it was Butterboy. It was.
Butterboy.
It's a great show.
And it's produced by
Joe Aparna and Maeve. Yeah, they run. It's a great show. Awesome. I think I had a bad performance, bad set of circumstances, regrettable.
And did the host talk to you and say that? Or did they say, well, we shan't have you back?
No.
Even her Irish lilt say that?
Yeah. They were apologetic. I think but it was also a little bit my fault. I think a better comedian with better instincts would have responded to that situation in a better way. Okay. I was a little green, a little confused. I think I kind of fucked up the situation.
But you often hear, although maybe sometimes you're hearing it differently, you know, the people, the crowds that want to shut up comedians are illiberal, and you know, they may be Trump fans, or they don't want to hear these liberal comics who come into town in their rural small town. But you're flipping it. You're saying,
I think it comes from all stripes of the political spectrum. I think the main thing is there are people, regardless of their political beliefs, who get infuriated if they don't get exactly what they want at all times. And these people, they left their house and they went out into the real world, and something in the real world rankled them. And they
want to hear comedy that they agree with.
100%.
But that's bad for comedy.
I agree. It's bad for the comedian. It's bad for the audience. You should have. It's lame to go out there and get exactly what you want and exactly what you expect. Like, imagine a movie with no twists and turns. You know?
Yeah. And what is humor but benign disruption of your expectation?
This one was a little malignant, I gotta say. This was a little cancerous.
Have you had any other experiences like that from either of those perspectives? Someone could watch your act and say, this guy is, you know, literally being an apostate, or maybe, I don't know what your pedophilia joke is, but I'm sure you're playing with the idea that I'm sure you're playing with the idea, like, maybe I'm a pedophile, or maybe I got convinced to be pedophilia.
It's in that ballpark. Yeah.
Wait, was this the K-pop joke?
I was watching some K-pop videos the other night. I'm usually not a big fan of K-pop because I'm not a child molester. You know, not to judge, but like, there are a lot of different kinds of music out there that don't feature shiny young boys cavorting around. One of the kids in the video winked at me. He's like, that's entrapment. Now, the reason this was on the television, I was at a Korean restaurant, and they had a TV mounted on the wall. It was playing this nonstop K-pop video after K-pop video. And after an hour, I'll admit, I kind of got into it a little bit, you know? I was like, okay, fine. I'll kidnap the blonde one. You got me.
No,
that's another. Well, maybe
I have a vast reservoir of.
There's a nice thing in that joke that I didn't love the punchline as much as I loved one phrase, which was these shiny young boys.
Shiny young boys.
That's what I love about that joke.
Yeah. Thanks, man. That's something I stole from Norm. It's just like weird little phrases here and there.
It's brilliant. I don't know. Maybe that helps the overall punchline. Like, you only get to laugh on the punchline.
Yeah, no.
But a phrase like shiny young boys.
Using fun language is like you know, a go-to trick for every comedian. I love it. You know.
Yeah. Or when, like, Louis talks about his body as this like flapping bag of a lawn and leaf bag that is blowing in the wind.
He's always very good at language. I always loved his use of language.
Yeah, I had Rachel Feinstein in here. I don't know if you know her, but she does that too. These little phrases that aren't even necessarily the punchline.
No.
To some extent, it just may keep the comedian plugged in.
Yeah, and it gives everything a little more color. You know.
Yeah.
A little more fun wayside on the way to destination.
It does bother me as a left of center liberal person. It doesn't surprise me that you'd be, you know, heckled or given a hard time. And you're a comedian, you have to deal with this. Although I talked to a few people essentially in that position. And Nimesh was right here, and he told the story about how he was in Colombia and he made a joke. And, you know, though a brown person, is an Indian, he was making a joke about why would you want to be black and gay, but, you know, just by saying black and not being a black person, I guess some people will say, okay, he's dwelling in an area that he shouldn't be. And it doesn't matter if the joke is on you. It doesn't matter the intent of the joke.
No.
I mean, some people will just not be able to take it. And that's exactly the kind of person that wants to voice their displeasure.
You can't please all the people all the time. It just sucks that the people you can't please all the time often will not shut the fuck up.
Right?
Like, I don't see what's wrong with being unhappy quietly.
That's right.
If you don't like it, just shut up.
That could be your greatest superpower,
don't
to
clap.
offend the quiet. Very offensive to the shy.
Yeah. I would love if all my hecklers were mute.
Yeah. So have you dealt with many hecklers since?
I don't get a lot of hecklers these days. I get a lot of people just talking in the crowd. People who are just like...
Their ideas are so provocative.
Chatting. Yeah, that's right. Wow, this guy's like some kind of Karl Marx figure.
You know, nerds used to be more benign.
Yeah,
but now they are a bit more violent.
Nerds have changed a lot, too, in recent years. Not for the better, in my opinion. Because, like, when I was growing up, nerds were, like, approachable, right? You'd see them on television. It'd be like a guy with glasses, a little bow tie, and you'd say things like, ah. I love homework so much, you know. And that was great. All right, these were good, honest, hardworking, all-American nerds, you know. They're a credit to our nation. But then you got these nerds nowadays. They're way different. Now, these modern nerds are like, women. They just lie to us and lie to us. We try to be nice. Well, maybe we should stop being so nice. And I don't think. I don't think that's as fun, personally speaking.
I appreciate you watching the whole special, by the way. You're really pulling a lot of deep cuts out of it. No, I think I
don't think the K-pop one was even in this.
That wasn't. That was a deleted scene. That one did not make the cut, man. I think that my main gripe now is just people chatting. Like, hey, where are we going after this?
Yeah.
This guy kind of looks like Harry Potter, like whatever bullshit.
And where among your gripes are emergency services vehicles?
You know,
podcasts.
I think the main thing about that is they should chill, let this person who's in the ambulance do what he's going to do.
Life-saving equipment in the ambulance.
Yeah,
He's better off than he was beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this concept. The fancy scissors, the kitchen scissors.
Yeah.
Like, this blew my mind the other day. I learned that apparently some of you aristocrats out there, you guys own like a separate pair of scissors just for the kitchen. Kitchen scissors, you call them, perhaps? And that don't truck with me, man. Like, I'm from the common clay, all right? I own one pair of catch-all scissors I use for all tasks, be it trimming my pubis or opening a package of ground beef. It doesn't matter. Oh! My apologies, my lord.
Do you have two sets of scissors? Did you?
I do. I'm an aristocrat. I don't know where that one came from, but yeah. I also, my kitchen scissors are in like terrible shape. They're like the shittiest, like gummy scissors. I don't know what happened to them. All I use them was to open packages of like plastic, and they're just like
kitchen scissors.
They're awful. They're awful, man.
But that's the demarcation of having made it, or at least the upper middle class.
That's right.
And,
yeah.
a real working class.
Once you get that solid West Elm.
Yeah. Once you have to put an adjective in front of scissors.
That's right.
You know you've made it.
Yeah.
Do you remember? So you don't remember where that came from, or when you had the idea of the fancy?
I think I've just been thinking about my finances a lot lately, and I was just like thinking like what things I have to cut out of my life, and just like humorously, oh yeah, well I'm down to one pair of scissors, man. I'm sorry, I just can't stretch it.
You don't really need. Sorry, it's not like different scissors form different functions. It's just nice to have them.
It is. Well, the problem is if you're using scissors in the kitchen to open up a pack of greasy bacon and a bunch of like shits going everywhere, then you don't want to go like cut a piece of paper with that. Or at least I don't, because I'm neurotic and OCD. But
I think that there's a few things. There's different scissors for different functions, but you have to have a big enough space to space out the scissors.
That's right.
Anyone living in a studio can get by with one set of scissors.
That's right.
Just because, like, it would seem weird to have two sets of scissors within reach.
But these billionaires, who are draining this country dry. Can you imagine how many pairs of scissors Elon Musk must own?
It must be all scissors.
Yeah, his mansion is just formulated from scissors. Yeah.
And another common theme that you've done jokes about essentially years apart is your commitment to drinking.
I made an entire month with no alcohol whatsoever, and it was amazing to see the effect it had on me, a month of not drinking, I was sleeping better. I had more energy. My mood was improved, I was less prone to depression, less prone to anxiety. My skin cleared up. Sexual performance improved. I lost a little bit of weight, saved a whole bunch of money. And really the only drawback I'd say is that life was not worth living.
And then your older joke that I saw about drinking was literally an older joke about the origins of drinking from 10,000 years
ago. Oh, that's right. God, how did that go? It was like...
Apparently, human beings like us, we have been drinking alcoholic beverages since 10,000 BC. Yeah, good for her. Good for the humans. And the reason why we know this, I guess these archaeologists, they dug up a bunch of old ceramic pots that contain significant residue of palm wine in them. And I think that just goes to show that even in 10,000 BC, when you went to the party, there was still some little bitch who couldn't finish his palm wine.
Could you imagine if that study came out and there was a phrase other than palm wine? Wouldn't be a joke.
No, at all.
No, it's all about palm wine.
Palm wine.
That's right.
It's also a hard thing to say, palm.
And also you hear it like when you're setting up the joke, no one is actually saying, well, what's palm wine? But everyone is kind of saying, it's like something that no one's ever heard before, but you could contextualize.
Yeah,
but then when you point it out as like being an oddity, there is a joy we take in having you done that.
It's funny because, if you were just to say wine, that would be a less funny joke. I don't know what it is about adding palm, but it just like changes it in a way I can't quite understand why.
Another thing about that joke is I don't know if the audience would get that or would get that at the time that you were doing it. But you start off with, things cool guys say, and then you never say it. That's the thing a cool guy says. Some little bitch.
Yeah.
So that is an example of you, saying something you don't believe. I mean, you weren't around 10,000 years ago, but talking in a way you don't talk, in a way that doesn't reflect your personality.
Yeah, I think it's funny to like take on different characters within the character,
Yes.
Like it's like you look at me, I'm obviously not a bro in any way except for my prodigious alcohol consumption. But like it's funny to kind of like stretch yourself into a different zone and see it, take on that language, take on, that way of speaking and see what pays out of it,
Do you really want to be a cool guy?
At this point, I think that ship has sailed.
Do you think it's a prison? Cool guy is a prison?
I think those guys are having a blast.
Yeah.
I think every day.
They're not ever thinking to themselves, this is a prison.
They are fucking roller coastering it out every single day. I don't think those guys have a care in the world, man.
Yeah. Sometimes they do say there's a lot of passing out, which when I remember I went to college and I heard it the first time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, and we passed out. I'm like, fuck, what you...
Oh my God, are you okay?
You blacked out.
You went to sleep.
You lost consciousness.
Yeah.
Just a really cool way.
Well, I think
the other cool way is saying we crashed.
Oh, yeah. Crash, I think, is like more innocent in a way. Crash, like, I got to crash.
Yeah.
Pass out does come with some kind of like debaucherous undertones to it, I guess. But people will also say, just like, I went to sleep. They will say, like, I passed out mad early last night,
Yeah.
No.
You got to find a cool way to say it because there's a lot of dorky ways to say it,
I went to Snuggletown.
Hit the hay. That's right.
Yeah.
As soon as my head hit the pillow.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. There's almost no middle ground.
1,000 winks. Yeah.
Well, I was visited by Mr. Sandman.
Yeah. Mr. Sandman, give me a little kiss on my nose.
When you passed out, do you ever exhale and have the little feather?
Yeah.
There and come down?
It's like,
not a pass out.
Let me try to do the Looney Tunes style. I can't. Yeah.
But if you pass out, you could never pull that.
No, pass out. It's like. Maybe I should start doing impressions.
Yeah, so definitely Looney Tune style.
Yeah.
People sleeping. Here's an impression of people sleeping in cartoons.
That'd be good. I could see that. I could see that catching on. It's
feather's always around the people.
Yeah. Oh, where's my sleep feather? I can never get to sleep unless I have my feather.
Yeah. What would happen if you usually when people pass out, someone will draw a dick on your face.
Oh, absolutely.
That happened after I was a kid.
Yeah.
I missed that.
That was like an early 2000s phenomenon.
Oh yeah, good. So I missed that. But that's the downside of passing out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
The dark side of alcohol poisoning.
So you're a morose guy, you're a weird guy, you're an angry guy, but you acknowledge you're not a cool guy, but you do all these jokes about nerds. But are you saying you are a nerd, or are you saying that given what nerddom has become, you're not a nerd? You're trying to distance yourself.
I think there's an alternate lifestyle or an alternate path I could have taken where I could have been one of these angry online nerds. And I'm grateful.
You mean like the multiverse alternate path?
No, those guys aren't really mean. I'm talking about like your mad incel, like QAnon posting mean responses on like people's YouTube videos. Those guys, I feel like it's possible if I hadn't made the right choices, I could be one of those people. So there is a big bit in the special about that because it's kind of like almost like a paranoia, like, oh God, that could have been me. It's like terrifying to think of it, This is like a terrible lifestyle.
Well, you say all these things about that certainly signal to the audience you're not that guy, and you understand that masculinity is a prison, even though that phrase is not the most facile one. Like, why do you feel the need to do that? There's still, even though you're playing a character, you still want to kind of communicate and define yourself more or less within the bounds of who you really are.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I guess like maybe because that is a topic that is kind of important to me. I think it's something that merits me more or less taking it straight on and not playing devil's advocate, not doing a bait and switch. I think it is something that kind of like means something to me. And it is kind of like a scary thing to watch people online who are just like corrupted by the internet, corrupted by their frustrations. So because of that, kind of like has an impact on me when I see it.
Because you recognize a little piece of it, as you say.
It could have been a little piece of myself. I also just recognize like the frustrations taking hold of some people. It's just like, it really just kind of bums me out.
Yeah.
I think because I have that authentic emotional reaction to it, that's what led to it being kind of more of a straight down the barrel type routine.
Right. It bums you out more than, say, the prison of masculinity.
Yeah.
You can acknowledge that and think about that, but it doesn't like really weigh upon you.
Yeah. And like the whole,
sadden you.
It doesn't sadden me in the same way that seeing like these furious people online does.
Right. But you still make jokes about both, which is, I'm not saying how dare you. I'm trying, it's interesting to how the humor presents itself, given that you have different frames of mind about both those things.
Yeah. I guess it's just like, it's certainly a topic that's ripe for the picking.
Yeah.
These people are ridiculous.
Do you ever, what's your fan base like? Do you ever, have you gotten so big that you actually get fans who are liking you for the wrong reasons?
I don't think I would say I have much of a fan base. Most of my fans, to call them like, I think probably more fans of my writing than my stand-up. Like the writing has always been like kind of like my bread and butter until recently when I've been doing kind of hitting the stand-up pretty hard. But I'd say most of my fans like know me from like, a lot of like Twitter jokes and that type of thing. Like just like that type of thing. But I don't know if I have fans for the wrong reason. I don't think I've ever, because I'll occasionally meet someone who's like, oh, I like your comedy or whatever. And they're usually pretty well-adjusted people. I don't get a lot of like psychos.
Yeah.
Although there is something I'm always complaining about, which is that like after shows, like my friends that don't do comedy, like, oh man, you're a comedian. You must have like chicks coming to you up after the show and like trying to meet you. And groupies are I'm like, maybe occasionally, but more likely what happens is some lunatic guy comes up like, I really identify with that. Here's 10 of my jokes. Like it's a lot like that shit happens a lot. That's like as bad as it gets. I don't really get a lot of like people threatening me or like.
And all 10 are less hinged than the last.
Yes. Like, hey, you want to do like a writing session? Like, I actually been started by thinking about doing comedy. How should we proceed? Like we?
Wow.
People just,
the phrase, am I putting that energy out there? I think you are.
I'm not. Don't victim blame here. I'm the victim here. They are the aggressors. Don't blame me for these people's. Yeah.
Last thing I want to ask you about in your career is The Onion. How long were you with The Onion? Did you enjoy being with The Onion?
Oh, I love The Onion so much. That was always my dream job to work for The Onion, and getting that was like amazing. I worked there full time for 2.5 years. I was like a freelance contributor for like a year and a half. So like 4 years total, one way or the other. That was just a dream come true.
And did that lead to Colbert?
Yeah. I was working at The Onion for like 2.5 years. I got my first manager, and then the Colbert Letterman transition happened around that time. And I applied for that. And I didn't get the writer job first off, but I got a different job there as like a digital writer producer, then got promoted at some point in.
And and your clips were Onion headline. Yeah,
I think it was a packet, and then it was like the type of thing, like, and send in like one other thing that shows you who you are. So I either send an Onion like article or like McSweeney's type piece, something of that nature. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while, but yeah.
The Onion's changed, man. Have you seen it lately?
All the digital media is, different.
But do you think it's changed with the times? Some of those quote unquote jokes, people will talk about how woke they are, but it does seem like I'm not quite sure that it's speaking in the same voice. Maybe I'm being nostalgic, but speaking in that same kind of voice of sanity and sarcasm about an insane world.
Well, I will say one is that everyone always has an automatic nostalgia for whenever they first came across something, or like, so like we all bring in our own biases on that.
Right.
And also the voice of the Onion has changed because the people are changing. They're going in and out. So it can reflect different sensibilities throughout the years. I still love the Onion. I still think it's really funny. I will always idealize the version of it when I was working there, because it was like, a great time in my life when I got to like make great jokes with my friends every day. So that will always be like my Onion. But, I still love what they're doing nowadays.
But it seems like they were a lot more transgressive then. I don't know. I guess where we draw the line.
I think
I could read some Onion headlines to you and you're like, okay, they're kind of making a joke against white people.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't like read it every day as like I used to, but I feel like I have seen, like they did a headline recently that was like fire hydrant sprays its hot load over a bunch of neighborhood kids. Like, that's not towing any line. That's like horrible, you know, like, and that was recent. So like, I think they still have that.
Damn it, they won me back.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they might have joke. I think they've always had an array of different style.
Yeah.
Some of them are more like, you know, political. Some of them more have like, you know, definite viewpoint, but I think they've always done a wide array, and they continue to do that.
Was there someone at the Onion who was great at the body paragraphs, like unsung? I know it's all headlines, and you only pitch the headlines, right?
Yeah.
But then someone had to write the body, the guy whoever wrote the headline, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would vary. Sometimes you'd get assigned the body of the headline you wrote. Sometimes you'd just be, you know, assigned to a random one. Everyone was pretty good. I mean, the guy who always really made me laugh is this guy Colbert, who was the head writer there, and then he was the editor in chief for a while. But he was always he would always come up with like the bestest like small details that would always crack me up. And it always made me sad when people would say they want to read the whole story, because there are always so many funny details in there that kind of like.
Usually the funniest details in the stories with the best headlines, or was that just random?
It's hard to say. I mean, the headline is always a thesis, so the better the headline, the better the article, you know.
Right. Because you have more to play with, and
out
there, it opens up a comic possibility.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, sometimes like a very simple headline could lead to crazy new worlds. You know.
What Onion headline are you most proud of that you wrote? Proud.
No. I mean, there's a lot of them. I think what I'm always mentioning, which is like, it's very juvenile. It's an op-ed, you know, it's like, you know, an opinion piece. And it was something along the lines of like, I'd say the worst part about being a restroom attendant is standing in a room where people shit 8 hours a day. And just very methodically went over what that would be like. Like, sometimes you're standing in the bathroom where you work in, where a guy will sprint in, slam the door of the stall, and you'll hear him defecate for 15 minutes. Then you hear him wiping his rectum with toilet paper. Then he comes and like pretends to wash his hands. And then sometimes he'll give me $1. I'd say that's one of the bad parts of my job. So it's a lot of like really extended, gross descriptions of that really were fun to write. And
it's very much in the vein of worst job, crack whore.
It is. It's a Norm joke.
You know, it's a bad joke.
The Norm headline.
Restroom attendant. You know why?
Yeah.
Your job is in a restroom.
Yeah.
You know what people do in a restroom?
They're shitting, brother. Yeah.
Exactly.
That was a good one. Crack whore.
The name of the special is Bag of Tricks. It's out on YouTube. Django Gold is the titular man behind Django Industries. That's who puts out. Well, or it wasn't just a coincidence, right?
No.
Django Industries didn't find you.
No. Yeah. They didn't have
a worldwide search.
Shadow corporation.
Yeah. A subsidiary of Django LLC, which is owned by the Indonesians. Django Gold, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man.
What's the name of the special again? A Bag of Tricks.
Bag of Tricks.
Right, I'm going to say it right.
Fandango Industries on YouTube.
Don't play to the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is mostly
Mike, Bag of Tricks. Fandango Industries on YouTube.
All right.
Sorry, Django Industries on YouTube. I fucked up my own plug. Django Industries on YouTube.
All right.